Why do they call you Lady Hawk?
I made a shot in a basketball game 25 years ago.
Must have been some shot.
Most places, no. Around here, yeah.
Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'm going to talk about the first episode of a new HBO show called Mare of Easttown. Is this a heavy character drama about a hometown detective forced to grapple with her personal demons? Or is it a mystery about a killer who is one step ahead of a small town? I was hooked in by the former, having grown up in a place that resembles Easttown, but I wasn't sure if this would have a wide enough appeal to cover the show, so I went ahead and watched the second episode, and now can confidently say that it's both. And in my estimation, it does both things pretty well. Don't worry though, this video will only be discussing episode 1, titled Miss Lady Hawk Herself. I just wanted to mention that if you thought the show was leaning too hard towards the character development at the expense of the mystery, it does change gears and lean in on the crime side of things in the second installment. They lay it right out there with the title, which has to be one of the least catchy ones I've heard recently. It's about the person and the place, and that should be of equal importance with the mystery. Episode 1 is about introductions. Easttown is important here because it's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else, and they might even be related. It's the kind of place where a detective sergeant might get a call about a peeping Tom on her personal cell while she's still in bed, or that your ex-husband might buy the house right behind yours because he got a great deal. And it's the kind of place where addiction seems to be touching most of the family's lives in one way or another, and where making a shot in a state championship basketball game is something that people are still talking about 25 years later. The city of Easttown does a lot of the heavy lifting in fleshing out these characters in their connection with it, and I will come back around to talk about that more at the end of this video. Now let's look at what actually happened in the first episode. After the ferret-looking prowler, we get an idea of what Mare's days are like. At the station, we see her get called out on TV for not solving a missing person case that's now a year old. Here we see her go straight to blaming the victim. She brings up the fact that Katie was a known drug abuser that had a history of prostitution. She tells the chief that the girl's body is probably at the bottom of the Delaware River. On the other hand, when she goes out on a burglary call where she knows the victim and the suspect, we get the idea that she's not without compassion, as we see her asking about why the suspect Freddie's house is so cold. And when she learns that the power company has turned it off, which is illegal, she's determined to help him out in that situation. Her strengths and weaknesses are both out there for us to see, and what's interesting is she has the same personal connection to both of these cases. They're both related to women that she played on that state championship basketball team with. We also get an idea of how her family life is. We see her shopping for an aquarium for a baby turtle. We see that she has a concern about the price, telling us that she's not exactly rolling in the dough, but probably more importantly that she's caring for her grandson who she says has trouble focusing on tasks. As we meet her mother and her college-bound daughter, who is helping to take care of the grandson but not his mother, Mare gets a surprise that kind of overshadows things in a way that makes it hard to understand how this family gets along under normal circumstances. Her ex-husband, whose call she'd been avoiding, is getting remarried and she was the last to find out. And this gives her an excuse to be cranky with everyone, but she's also a real pain in the ass here, and it makes you wonder if she's always that way and she's just looking for an excuse rather than the other way around. Either way, while everyone else in town seems to be going to Frank's house for his party, Mare goes over to Lori's house. Lori has been her best friend since childhood, and they head over to the high school where we see that Beth, Lori, Mare, and Dawn were all teammates on that state championship team. As they're getting called to the floor, Mare brings up Dawn's appearance on TV, and she won't let up. Dawn says, "It's not about you, Mare, not everything is. It's about finding my daughter." And I mean, it kind of is. She's got a point there. But at the same time, it is kind of about Mare, isn't it? At least from what we've seen from the police station, she seems to be the head person in charge of this case. It's a year old. The chief says they have nothing. And this is all clearly a sore spot for our detective. By the end of the episode, it will turn out to be one of 2 cases in Easttown that involve young women. In episode 1, we also meet the single mother, Erin, her scary dad, and the disinterested and cruel father of her child. The opening shot of Erin, which is almost a mirror image to where we last see her in the episode, tells us most of what we need to know about this character. She seems to genuinely love her son, and becoming his mother at this young age has changed her life and isolated her. We spend a decent amount of time in this episode getting to know her, getting ready to root for her, and then having it pulled out right from underneath us as her ex Dylan's new girlfriend Brianna plays a cruel trick, impersonating a new love interest online, and then luring her to the high school hangout spot to beat her up. It's pretty brutal all the way around. Like I said, the setup makes her a sympathetic character, and the way everything plays out is just really cruel. Luckily, at the last moment, Mare's daughter Siobhan shows up with her friends and they're able to break things up. But then Erin walks off by herself, only to be found murdered in a nearby creek the next morning. Considering we know this is a story about a detective and that it's going to be a murder mystery, a lot of the scenes watching Erin start to feel kind of inevitable. And by the time we see this shot where she gets a smile on her face thinking about the upcoming date, riding her bike over to her friend's house, is about the same time we know that she's going to end up dead. I guess what is compelling about it and what makes it work is we can totally understand why she would fall for this. She needs to believe that this guy she's going to meet is real. So it's not hard to imagine her falling for it when we know that this is a bad idea. I guess the least interesting part of the first episode for me was this introduction of Richard, the potential love interest for Mare. But their introduction does a pretty good job of highlighting how Mare sees things. I mean, this is the perfect setup for her, right? She's upset that her ex-husband's getting remarried, that nobody told her about it. She goes to the bar. There's this good-looking, interesting new guy from out of town that doesn't know anything about her or the place where she can't escape. And it really takes some convincing to get her to actually get involved here. It turns out they have this thing in common. They both peaked early. Their big thing happened when they were younger. His being that he wrote a good book, he won a prestigious award, and we'll have to see where things go from here. Because after they hook up, she goes home and she does get the call, and she'll be tasked with trying to find out who killed Erin. I mentioned that her daughter was helping to take care of her grandson, but isn't the boy's mother. That indicates that there's another child, and we do see Mare have a vision of him or see him in a dream before she wakes up. We don't know anything about what happened to him or when it happened. We do know that the child is 4 years old, so it may be recent, and it may have something to do with why she wasn't able to find out what happened to Katie when she went missing. I mentioned how I'd come back to the idea of how the small town and everyone's connection to it sort of sets things up. When everyone knows everyone else, that means that the chances of the killer being an anonymous character go down. Not only is everyone a suspect, but the connections mean that there could be complications for Mare as things come to light. We've already seen that her personal connections play a part in how she approaches her job. And just how her famous basketball shot colors how everyone sees her, her familiarity with the locals of Easttown might color how she goes about interacting with potential suspects. At this point, we don't know if the two crimes are connected. We don't know if the Prowler has anything to do with it or if he really looks like a ferret. Mare did see someone lurking on her way home and scared him off. I'm not sure if there's something else going on there. We have gotten an idea about who the characters are, though, about the town they live in, and it all has me excited to jump into the mystery next week. I think we'll spend some time trying to figure out if Mare is the way she is because of things that have happened to her, or if she's ultimately her own worst enemy that's brought much of this on herself. I think it's safe to say that it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, yeah, she did basically blame Katie for getting disappeared, but she also did get out of bed to respond to the call about the Prowler, which does tell us something. I thought the performances were pretty fantastic here. It's not a huge surprise considering the cast, but Kate Winslet seems to be pulling off the accent as far as I can tell. Her mentioning the clean water for the turtle caught my attention. And I'm not from that area specifically, but that is an accent I've heard before. I thought the ankle injury was a great idea that added a lot to every scene that came after it. It sort of made her outsides match her insides or something along those lines, just watching her struggle to get around. In her short run as Erin, Kaylee Spaney pretty much nailed it. And her father reminded me of quite a few people I came in contact with growing up. Really, all of the locals seemed real and familiar, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them all better. The scene where Beth breaks down and tells Mare that she just wishes her brother would die, that he would get it over with already, was really powerful. There's definitely darkness underneath and there's plenty of misery to go around, but from what I've seen so far, it doesn't seem to get stuck there. I guess another one of these limited series I watched was I Know This Much Is True. Kind of felt like something you had to endure rather than just watch and take it all in. And I don't think this is going in that same direction, but we'll have to wait and see. And I think that is the perfect place to bring this video to an end. Let me know in the comments what you think about the show, what do you think about happened to Erin, and where you think things are heading. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.